We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
In the face of an unidentified threat, the administration has decided to opt for the Winnie the Pooh defense and bury its head in the honey jar. Now, what does this mean for dealing with aerial incursions? What's happening with inflation? And what is the state of the Second Amendment in light of the new ATF ruling? All this and more on today's show. Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's show, we talk spy balloons, Bidenomics, and guns. What a combination. I'd like to take a special moment to say thank you to our listeners on KXYL 1240 AM and 102.3 FM out in Brownswood, Texas. Thanks for being here. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. With unidentified objects floating across the continental United States and fighter jets scrambling to take them down, there's a lot of unanswered questions and more than little deflection. Well, to help us navigate precisely what is happening and also what is not, we're joined by Liberty Nation author and former Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Controller, Mr. Dave Patterson. Welcome back to the show, Dave. Good to have you on.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be with you.
So, Dave, you've been providing what I'd class as rolling coverage for the pages of Liberty Nation on these flying or floating objects. And to me, it seems you've provided some of the most comprehensive analysis that's available on the net. So what's your take, as of recording time, these four objects that have so far been encountered?
Well, I think you can look at this in a kind of in sequence. So when did we know about the balloon? 200 feet high, roughly 14 stories, not hard to miss. And two fellows in Montana didn't miss it, whereas the entire United States government did. So we first learned that it came into the airspace on the 28th of January. And it was 4 days later that President Biden was briefed on it on the 1st of February. And then they dithered, and it went over many of our sensitive military installations, like Malmstrom Air Force Base with the ICBM fields.
That's the Montana one, right? That's in Montana.
That's right, in Montana. And then you had also Malmstrom Air Force Base is one of the key communications nodes for our Global Strike Command and Control. And then it meandered down and looked at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where we have B-2s, our global strike capability. And finally, 4 days or later, the president decided to shoot it down over, as it coasted out over South Carolina. So we had quite a long time in which this balloon was or should have been known to us. Now, lo these many days later, we have the intelligence community that tells us, oh, well, we knew about this balloon when it took off from Hainan Island in China, and we have been tracking it ever since it took off. Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know. Had we known about this a little earlier, it might have been more easily dealt with. And
sorry to interrupt, Dave. Strategically, if they knew about it when it came from Hainan Island, which, by the way, is the go-to holiday destination for Chinese and expats in China, it's a very, very fancy place. Surely there's a big stretch of ocean in which it could have safely been shot down when it was apparent that it was approaching land, rather than waiting until it coasted off the other side at South Carolina, no?
Well, I think more importantly, there was plenty of open space over which you could have brought this balloon down safely. And I mean, I guess we're, geography challenged in our government that they wouldn't know this. But the fact is that what's kind of disturbing is now we have a rather prominent Washington newspaper that is telling the story of how we knew this was a balloon from Hainan when it took off. And basically they're flacking for global news, the Chinese Communist Party news outlet, which is what they said. And, it's just a new balloon. It got off track. It got into the jet stream. We couldn't control it. Well, okay. But we've kind of dismissed that as a logical explanation.
Okay, and then there were three others, which I haven't seen too many reports describing what they are, but I believe one description is a hexagonal metallic balloon with strings dangling off it. What is that?
Well, right now we're trying to determine that. What it looks to me like is that it could easily be some sort of a reconnaissance balloon, but now we're thinking it's more likely, and this is somewhat comical, that it's a balloon. This is what they've said. It's a balloon that probably came from a used car dealership that was advertising, sales. But there's kind of a problem with that line of thinking, in that how many used car dealerships do you find in northern Alaska and in the Yukon?
And of course, those used car balloon men and things, that they're generated by air. They're not helium-based products. They're generated by air. So once it comes out from the exhaust, once it comes out of the plug socket, it turns off. In all fairness, there are some large helium balloons, but very few used car dealerships in northern Alaska and the Yukon. But be that as it may, there are lots of things that are questionable and that just don't make any sense from the Biden administration, which is unfortunate, because we're dealing with two things that I think are very, very important. One is, can we detect balloons that might be a danger to us? And secondly, what is the decision time that this administration has demonstrated? First, and let me not just ramble on, but ramble on just enough. We saw in a number of photographs where the Chinese have demonstrated a large balloon with a gondola underneath it that carries hypersonic weapons. So if you don't have a decision process that finds these things very quickly, I mean, a hypersonic weapon over the United States gives you very, very little reaction time. And so these are the kinds of things that I think Americans should be, and the rest of the free world should be concerned about, is when you see something, how long does it take you to make a decision? And in these cases, it's been glacial, not to keep up with the metaphor of the northern tier bases. Yeah, it seems almost excruciating how long the process takes. Now, China recently made an announcement saying that this sending of balloons, although they haven't claimed ownership of the latest three objects, that it's essentially a quid pro quo situation with the US engaged in similar tactics. Now, is this correct? Don't we know? Is it deflection?
It's deflection. We don't have, as best anybody knows, sure. And of course the president would be the last to know. Whether we don't have balloon programs that are have reconnaissance capability. Now, having said that, we do have programs like the J-lens balloon that we use for border control, for looking for drug runners. We have used those kinds of balloons in the past, but they're tethered. They don't go anywhere. And so it's not likely that one of those came loose. And we simply don't have that program, and it's deflection.
Okay, and we're talking with Dave Patterson on the national balloon issue. We'll be back with Dave speaking about the unspoken security concerns facing the country after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five. produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone, hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner, joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors, deconstructing leftist narratives, debating the hot topics, and remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe
You only
space.
did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.